So my name is Stefan, and I teach biology courses at Houston Community College. The title of my talk is Believe and Achieve, Gauge and Engage, and I use the Macmillan text, Genetics, a Conceptual Approach. Next slide. So I'm going to show you screenshots of my actual course. This is the spring 2023. This is not AI. This is my actual course right here. So you guys are all familiar with this. You've got the grade book, analytics going directly to the ebook. And here's chapters 1 through 5. It's a screenshot when you go into course content. Of course, students, they have the Welcome to Achieve to learn how to use the platform. And then goal setting and reflection survey. So I've been using Achieve since it launched, and I never used it. So I learned when Natalie had a meet and greet, there were some other people who had used it. So I'm going to use it. I'm teaching this class in the middle of July, 5-week class. I've never taught it as a 5-week class. Normally it's the 16 weeks because we cross fruit flies, you know, those little flies that you have when you bring bananas and they're really annoying. Well, we breed those and then look at the different traits. So I'm going to give you an example here. So you would click on Chapter 5, Extensions and Modifications of Basic Principles. Next slide, please. You can go directly to the ebook, and then they have in-class activities, so you can engage. Now, you can do this, of course, in a face-to-face environment, or if it's online via WebEx, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, whatever, you can use those in-class activities. And then they have the assessments. Those are the quizzes, pre and post. And then I'm going to go over today one of the interactive, which is high engagement, a little bit later at the end of the talk. Next slide. So an example of in-class activities, the classic think, pair, share. So you can use these in class live, or if you're doing it virtually, you can use those as well. So we're engaging with in-class activities. Next slide. Now let's go here to assessments. So they can either be pre or post, your classic quizzes. So we're going to gauge student performance. Next slide. So you've probably heard, some of you who've never used Achieve, I know a lot of you have used clickers, and I'm actually going to also experiment with clickers. So I've got 2 experiments to do in the middle of July, introducing iClickers and introducing the surveys. So what is learning curve? So here you have a classic reading quiz. You have to read it, and then you get feedback from that. The classic homework, which are quizzes. And then the learning curve is an adaptive quiz. So that's an algorithm. So if students miss certain questions, then additional questions that come from a pool of questions are administered so gaps of knowledge can be filled. So let's go to the learning curve. If you would click on this, this is the learning curve. So I've X'd out the students because, of course, privacy, and it gives you some analytics. I'm just showing part of this. So performance distribution, 2 of the 22 students got 90% or up, 70. That means that on the first try, they got the question right. So the reason why learning curve is very popular with students is there is this threshold. So for this chapter 5, it's 450 points. So what happens is if a student misses a question, then a similar question in that same area is brought up. And when they reach the threshold of 450, they get 100. So in that column in the grade book, if they get 450, they get 100 for that assessment. So they like that because the other quizzes, which you may only give 2 or 3 attempts and points may be deducted for incorrect answers, here everyone gets 100 points if you reach the threshold. So this particular student answered 26 questions and got 452, so reached the threshold. So in the grade book, it'll be 100. Now, this student right over here only answered 8 questions and it didn't do very well. So of course, I sent an email to that student. You need to finish this activity. I probably gave an extension. And then this student over here answered 61 questions. So you can reopen the learning curve after the due date and they can practice those questions before a major test. And actually, this particular student actually wrote a letter of recommendation for pharmacy school. So at Houston Community College, in the genetics department, we often get, most of our students are actually graduates from here, UT, University of Texas at Austin or Texas A&M. They get a major and they change their mind and they want to get in the healthcare profession. So they apply to pharmacy school, physician's assistant school, medical school. So they take community college courses because, of course, much cheaper and so forth. So yeah, I wrote a letter of recommendation for her. So you can see 724 is higher than 450, but she chose to go through additional questions to practice for the test. Next slide, please. And then finally, this is just one of the fantastic features here of Achieve, where we're getting maximal engagement with videos, animations, things, crisscrossing across the screen, and an interactive exercise, which I'm going to briefly describe. Next slide. So an example for chapter 3 is we are engaging now with interactive, and you can use these in class or online once again. So if you are hosting a synchronous class where the students can see your screen via WebEx, MS Teams, or Zoom, they can actually participate in this. Next slide. And this is an example of interactive activities. And I'm going to go over Punnett Square, which some of you who didn't take any biology courses or in high school, hopefully you didn't skip those classes. That may ring a bell or two, but we're going to go over very quickly a Punnett Square activity. So they have tutorials here. They have animation activities, problem-solving videos. And then this last one right here is an interactive activity, which is maximal. I call it maximal engagement. Next slide. So this is Punnett Square. So we've got 2 mice here. You can see there's 2 black mice. Now, before, I've only been in education for 7 years. I worked in academic research at MD Anderson Cancer Center, and I worked with mice for like 20 years. So same slide. So what happens is when the students see this, or as an instructor, so the students can actually use this, or of course I'm going to show how an instructor uses it, is when you click on the screen or touch your phone or with the mouse, then you're going to get here a pop-up where it has the letters. So the letters here is we have these 2 black mice. So black fur is this capital B or an uppercase B, and that is going to be the allele. An allele is a variant. So we're talking about coat color here. One of the alleles will be black, which is capital B, and then the white or albino will be little b. So what happens is we are going to do a mating or a cross between 2 mice that are heterozygote. That means they have one big B. So what the student will do is you put the pop-up window, you put in here big B, you put in here little b, you put big B for the biological mother mouse, and you would put big B, little b for the biological male mouse. And then, next slide. This is what happens. So you've got big B, little b, big B, little b. And these mice are black because the big B is dominant over the little b. And then this is kind of like a tic-tac-toe exercise for those of you who remember Punnett Squares. So then you take this, and then you get big B, big B. You would take this and this, big B, little b, and then big B, little b, and then you get big B, little b, and then you get, these are 4 probabilities. Now, mice, the litter sizes are 8, so kittens and puppies are 6, but all this shows is there is probabilities. So here you can see big B, that's one of the 4 squares. And here, little b is also one of the 4. And then here you have these 2, that's 50% of the squares. Next slide. So this is what it looks like. So big B, black, big B, little b, which is the parental strain, which we just did the cross, that will also be black. And what happens is if you put what you do is you're going to have to take the gray. If you would put the gray over here, it would say wrong. So how this happens, it's all drag and drop. So you drag and drop. If you would put the white mouse here, there would be an error. So here we have, this is the correct, because I didn't want to spend the time to go through all the different scenarios. But here you have 3 of the 4 are black and 1 is white. So if there was a litter of 8, probability 2 of the 8 pups. That's what baby mice and rats are called. They're called pups. They're hairless. They grow hair after about 1 week. So 2 of the 8, or 25% shown here, would be white. And then 50% are going to be actually 50 plus 25, 75% will be black. So this is a maximal engagement interactive activity with complete dominance. And there's another scenario, which is almost our last slide. Next slide. So this is an example of incomplete dominance. So here you have these different scenarios. So I gave the most simple example, which is complete dominance. This is incomplete. So if you have 2 snapdragon plants that are pink. So that would be capital R would be red, little r would be white. So if you take a father biological male plant and a biological female plant. Now, of course, lilies, snapdragons, they're hermaphroditic. They have both the male and female reproductive glands. That's another class where I dissect the plants. But don't do that in this class. So now when we breed these 2, you get these scenarios. And let's just cut to the chase here. 25% of them are going to be red because it's a big R. And then these 2 of the 4 squares will be pink. So that's big R, little r, which are the same, of course, as the parents. And then the albino or the white is going to be 25%. So why is this so useful? Because you can, with this workspace, you can make up all these different scenarios. And I didn't go over the others because it's kind of lengthy. They also have codominance, which is blood type A, AB blood type B, O blood type, and then sex-linked traits, like, for example, colorblindness, discriminating between red and green, and hemophilia. That was discovered, the kings of England and Spain. All the princes were getting hemophilia. None of the princesses were because if it's recessive, it's associated with the X chromosome. So you have all these different scenarios, and you can do this in a virtual classroom. So you can enter different scenarios, different letters, and you have different combinations. Next slide. So in summary, why do I believe in Achieve? Because you can engage the students either in person or online modality, and high flex modality if you want to choose that. Think, pair, share, animation activities, interactive activities, which I just showed you with the Punnett Square. And then you can gauge student performance, either in person or online. The learning curve, which uses an algorithm for adaptive learning, pre and post assessments. And last slide. So throughout this past couple days, we've been seeing this little cowboy with the campfire. So I decided, I know it's the summertime, it's not cold. So all of us are huddling around the campfire. And I wanted to put like everyone's name, but I don't want to leave anybody out. So just want to thank the organizers of this little advocacy retreat, or I don't know how this tech ed or ed tech, the hosts here, my fellow advocates where I've learned so much. Thank you very much. And then, of course, the staff here helping us out. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, let me know.